Now, I know that's a lot to focus on, but I can't reiterate enough how these mechanics are the foundation to effective strength and conditioning. Honestly, I think it's the most undertaught skill us coaches give our clients is teaching optimal movement habits. So as we layer loading and intensity on top of that, we don't get injured. We build our body up instead of wearing it down. So you have all of these mechanics in one place. Here's one of my favorite visuals I've ever made. I want you to refer to it as you're in the gym if you're ever unsure about an exercise. Once again, these mechanics are universally applicable. Now, to finish off, we're just going to go over a couple final concepts in biomechanics and how we apply them. Now, some of you may be thinking to yourselves, I haven't utilized these mechanics before and I haven't gotten hurt. Well, remember, your body's incredibly robust. Just because we move wrong once doesn't mean we're necessarily going to get hurt. If I move wrong over and over and over again, however, especially in the gym under load where we have more stress being placed on tissue, well, eventually something's going to give. Going back to our car analogy, if we redline our engine once, it's probably not going to explode. If we do it over and over again, the check engine light's probably going to come on. In our bodies, we call that pain. Pain is a check engine light for some kind of mechanic we're doing wrong. And then if we keep doing that to the engine, it'll eventually explode. In our body, that's called an injury. This is all to say, just because you haven't been moving this way and haven't gotten hurt doesn't mean that's not inevitable. And the more often we can utilize these good mechanics, the lower likelihood we have of getting injured. The next idea is that we want to match our level of muscle activation to the intensity of the activity that we're doing. What I mean by that, if I'm going to pick a backpack up off the ground, I probably don't need to brace the hell out of my trunk, squeeze my butt maximally, go crazy creating tension in my body. However, if I'm going to back squat 400 pounds, you better bet that I'm going to be trying to brace out with my trunk as much as possible, squeeze my glutes as much as possible, just shore up all those activations so that we have the best positions possible. Idea being, obviously at higher intensities, there's a bigger risk of getting hurt. So we need to focus on the mechanics that much more so that we don't get hurt. Next, and this might seem like a self-explanatory idea, but we don't want to do exercises that directly contradict these mechanics. For example, let's take a classic crunch. Doing a crunch, your lower back has to go into loaded flexion. There's no way to do a crunch without rounding our low back and loading it. That directly contradicts our neutral spine position. So we're not going to do crunches. Now, you may have been doing crunches up to this point and you haven't hurt your low back, but that goes to the same point that we just talked about. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean you're not getting yourself closer to that point every time you do a crunch. Also, there's the idea, we have the freedom to choose the most effective movements we want in the gym. So why wouldn't we do a plank or a bird dog, something more isometric for our trunk that works with the function of our spine instead of a crunch? This is to say, if you see an exercise in your program that contradicts these mechanics and there's no way to get around that, just drop the exercise and find a substitute. Another important idea is that when we utilize these mechanics, our body should feel super solid. Meaning, if I have good joint positions and I'm using the right muscles at the correct levels to support those positions, when we lift a weight, our body should feel solid as a rock. We shouldn't feel sketchy, twingy, like we're around the corner from an injury. If you do feel that way, even more and more applying these mechanics, that's the point at which I encourage you to go find a movement professional to work one-on-one with, either a personal trainer or a physical therapist, just to get the specific coaching your body needs to get out of that pain and sketchiness. Finally, I just want to reiterate that it takes mental effort to apply these biomechanics. We need to actively focus on utilizing these biomechanics as we exercise, as we move. They're not just going to be automatic. Quite frankly, as we start to use these mechanics, they'll probably feel foreign and kind of weird as you're using them. That's totally normal. The odds are you haven't moved this way most of your life, so as we change that motor engram, it's going to feel a little bit funky for our body. However, over time, as we utilize these mechanics more and more, we'll establish a new motor engram. It will feel more natural to move this way. Now, that concludes our biomechanics section. If you have any questions on these topics or concepts that you want me to go over, please reach out. Next, we're going to move on to our movement patterns module, where we're going to apply these biomechanics to the different movement patterns we'll utilize in our programming.